Welcome to the Taming the FamilySearch Goliath class series. Tonight we're having Class 6, which is source records. This class will be divided into two briefer parts, Part A and Part B. I'm Carol Devine. We're recording this December 15th, 2016. In Class 5, we learned data entry standards help us prevent duplicate people. We walked through how the merge screen works, and we learned some helpful tools to discover duplicate people. We also learned how to merge and unmerge duplicate people and families. In particular, we learned that you can only unmerge immediately after you finish a merge before you've made any other changes. In Part A of Class 6 tonight, we introduce two family relationships to prove with vital records. We're going to introduce trustworthiness of various record types because they're not all equally trustworthy. We're going to learn how to find and attach scanned records in family tree. I'm going to share with you solutions for 6 challenges that commonly occur when you're trying to attach a record to a person page or person pages, and I'm going to share with you a fun new tool called findarecord.com. Vital records help us discover new relatives, confirm family relationships, add to what we thought we already knew, find discrepancies in what we knew that lead us to new conclusions, and help us discourage others from changing documented facts we add to FamilySearch. Family Tree is actually the only database I know of where people are all contributing to a single worldwide tree, which means that anyone who shares your ancestors can change anything you put in there about them. And the best way we can prevent that or discourage them from making those changes is to show them our sources. So what exactly are we trying to prove with vital records? At a minimum, for each generation starting with you, 1, these two people were a couple, and 2, my direct ancestor was their child. Sometimes you can do that with one record. For LDS researchers, I offer this insight. Even if family ordinances have already been performed, we need to confirm these family relationships with vital records. If the relationships are wrong, we need to correct them, but we should only do that on the basis of vital records. So why do we need to confirm those two relationships in our families? This was a couple, this child was their child. Because researching a whole branch of your tree and then discovering that they weren't your relatives is really painful. Let's talk briefly about the trustworthiness of various types of records that we believe are vital records and can be attached to our family pages. There is primary evidence, which is the most reliable. Essentially, it's first-hand testimony of an eyewitness to or a person who had a special immediate interest in the recorded event. Examples are a birth record, which is usually completed by the mother or the doctor, a marriage record, a land or tax record. The mother's Bible record is first-hand testimony, and of course a will created by the person who is ill and probably will soon pass away. And then there is secondary evidence, which is less reliable. It is second-hand information, corroborating, that is to say, multiple secondary evidence that points in one direction, helps to improve its credibility. Examples are census or military records. Why? Someone was right there talking to the census taker. Why isn't that considered first-hand testimony? Because we don't know who was talking to the census taker. It might have been their 12-year-old daughter. It might be the father. who had no idea how old these kids were. In a death certificate, the person who is providing the first-hand information is often under a great deal of stress. Many times it's a daughter or a son in the family, or even sometimes a neighbor who may not have correct information, and under the stress of the situation may actually provide misinformation inadvertently. Any extraction or typed index of any vital record is second-hand information, because when we extract it, we are capable of interjecting errors ourselves. County and regional histories, you know those wonderful books where the county of Shelby County, Iowa, that have beautiful photographs of people and tell glowing stories about how wonderful their lives have been. Did you know that people paid to have that information put in those books? Number one, so our more humble and less affluent relatives were probably not even included in them, number one. And number two, did you know that they never had a chance to proof that information before it was published? Somebody came out and interviewed them, went back and wrote the story and put it in the book without their having any further input, usually. Printed or online surname genealogies are second-hand information. And gravestones and obituaries are also second-hand information. Why are obituaries second-hand information? Well, largely because often it was the surviving spouse of the individual who passed away or one of their children who may or may not have been looking at records, may have been reciting the information from memory and perhaps got some of it wrong. There are several books that you might want to consider obtaining, at least one of. I looked online and found this book, Genealogical Proof Standard, 4th edition, that's only 72 pages long. It's a paperback and not very intimidating. It sells for about $9 on Amazon, including shipping. So these books are not terribly expensive, and they would help you to know how well you could trust the resource that you are using. There are a couple of other books that every genealogist who is serious about doing work in the United States at least should be aware of. One of these is called Ancestry's Red Book. The Red Book is a wonderful resource which actually has a lengthy section for each state in the United States. And in that section, which is written by professional genealogists who have specialized in that area, it tells all kinds of information about not only the history of that state, primary migration patterns into the state, where the people were primarily coming from, but also why they came, and then has a lengthy section on how you find vital records in that state for all kinds of different things like tax records, etc. Then it has a section which has a map of the state with its current county boundaries and a chart that shows you this important piece of information. It tells you when, in what year, that particular state or that particular county started collecting marriage data, birth data, and death data. Because there is no point in searching for a birth record if the state didn't even start collecting those until 40 years after the year when your ancestor passed away. The other resource I highly recommend to you is called Map Guide to U.S. Federal Censuses. This book is wonderful because it actually has, for a given state, a map for each of the censuses. So, for example, in Washington, there would be a map from the first year when a census was taken in Washington and for each successive decade as the census was issued. The purpose of this is to help you see how county boundaries changed in that state over time. Lots of times you think that your person lived in such and such location at the time of the 1920 census, and you can't find the 1920 census. If you actually go and look at this book, it will show you that in 1920 it wasn't the county that you expected, but a predecessor of that county, perhaps a much larger county which was ultimately cut into pieces and called different counties. So those two books are valuable, and both of them can often be obtained through your local family history library if you don't happen to own them yourselves. Where do we find source records? Big blank page. It's kind of like, okay, where do I start in this journey? Well, you start right here. You start with your own family papers, and you start with your immediate and distant relatives. You want to find out what they possess that might help you document the lives of your family members. Many of them have vital records, marriage records, birth records, death records, divorce papers, all kinds of real estate records that are vital records and are every bit as valid as what you can find online. We can obtain source records from other researchers who share our ancestors, from online genealogy databases like FamilySearch, FamilyTree, from state and federal databases and archives, from county and state records repositories, local and regional libraries, family history centers like the LDS Church Family History Center in Salt Lake City, and our local libraries, regional genealogy society websites and their publications, online databases for other nations, military service databases, lineage societies and surname organizations, cemetery lookup databases, and compiled genealogies. Notice, compiled genealogies that include sources. If they don't, it's their opinion, and that's all it is. There are lots of different ways to find sources other than the internet. Today we're focusing in part A of this class on finding vital records in Family Tree. We're going to be talking specifically about our finding options, which are to find records from source hints or from a list of possible sources, source records. We're going to talk about how the records are presented, and we're going to share with you how you refine your search criteria to obtain what you want more quickly. Finding options within Family Tree. On the person page, you have two small boxes in the right-hand column, one of which says Research Help and indicates record hints for that individual, tells you what record they're showing you or offering you, and gives you an opportunity to click on that person's name to go to that record. Just below that, you'll see another button that says Search Records and gives you an opportunity to search records in FamilySearch, in Ancestry.com, in Find My Past, or in MyHeritage. You need a password for each of those if you choose to use them. And for the purposes of this class, we will be talking about finding records in FamilySearch and specifically in Family Tree. Those of you who are using the handout that you downloaded from the website will not have this box. I just created it late this afternoon as I was thinking more about what would be helpful to you. I wanted you to know that often for U.S. research, the logical place to start is with census records. And so I wanted you to know what census records are available and most useful to you. If your person was alive in 1850, that is the first census that listed the wife and kids by their given names. Censuses started in 1790. It took them 60 years to figure out that the wife had a name too. 1860, 1870, and 1880 censuses were also valuable. They also included that same information. Each of them became a little bit more complex and offered more detail. In 1880 was the first census to actually list the birthplace of the parents of the person who was being listed in the family. And as you undoubtedly know, the 1890 census is unavailable to us except as very small fragments. It actually burned and was damaged in the process of putting out the fire. The 1900 census is the first that offered the birth month and year of the person who was in the family. In fact, it's the only one that offers that information. It also was the first to offer the year of immigration for people who had come to America from another country. And it was the first to offer Native American rolls so that it indicated that that person was of Native American extraction. 1910 did the same thing, and it listed the kids that had been born and the kids that were still living. So it might say Kids born, 9. Kids living, 7. And if you've only got 7 kids listed, you know that you lost 2 of the children. You need to try to find them. Then, of course, the 1920, 1930, and 40 censuses are useful to us. Many people who are starting their family history research want to begin with the 1940 census and work back, as opposed to starting up here and working down. Also, please do not overlook state censuses. The 1925 Iowa State Census lists the family, and then on page 2, each person's parents, ages if they are living, and birthplace, and where they married. It's incredible. For those of us who have relatives in Iowa, we owe the people who took that census a great debt. How records are displayed. If I chose to click on Ruth Brucher, which is actually Bracher, that's kind of funny, in Research Help Record Hints, this is what would come up on my person page. It's a preview of the record, and it gives me a chance to look at it well enough to say, yeah, I think I'm willing to review or attach that. I may not be actually going to attach it, but I'm willing to look at it. And to see the actual record, when I get there, I actually click on Image. I am going to show some of this to you firsthand. I want to actually review a couple of quick facts with you before we do that. I promised you that I was going to share with you how you can refine your search criteria. If instead of accepting hints, because perhaps there are none, you've decided that you need to search in FamilySearch for records, you have the ability to change from the records list that FamilySearch gives you, a long list of all the records it can find that might possibly be for that person, over to collections, so that you can say, oh, well, I'm really only looking for the 1870 U.S. Census at this time. I'll click this box, and that's all I'll see on my list. It significantly shortens the list and makes it possible for you to focus on the specific record you're trying to obtain. This information over here on the left is also a place where you can refine what you're looking for. And furthermore, you can actually tailor this if you know, for example, that the person you're looking for went by a nickname commonly, and you can't find the record you're searching for by the name that he shows in his person page. You can actually modify this to indicate his nickname and search for a record under that name without affecting his person page at all. Okay, let's take a second at this point to look at some first-hand examples. I really want to show you this stuff. I want to go here. Right. I'm going to take you to a couple of these. We're going to load the first record from hints. 94M9MQZ. Right, let's go see one. Oh. Wonder if that was a 2. That's my most famous problem. I don't write my 2's and Z's clearly enough. Yep, that's what we needed to do. Let's go see. Okay. Here's Laura Arzina Mitchell's page, and as you see, over here on the right-hand side, we have, I don't know, a little bit up a little. Okay, we have the Research Help box, which has record hints displayed. These are 3 possible records for her. And then we have another box just beneath it, which is the one where we search for records if there aren't any hints or if we're looking for a specific record. Let's go to one of the censuses that are offered to us right here. We're going to do a very simple record analysis and attachment. This is the preview that I mentioned to you, and we'll review and attach it. That doesn't actually attach anything yet, you understand. It just gives me a chance to attach it, okay? Now, what are we looking at on this little new menu that comes up here? Notice that on this side, Oh, it made it longer. That's going to make it a little trickier for us to show. It's still the same information. It's just added a big box in the center of it that makes everything get longer. But on the left-hand column, it's the information that's coming out of the United States Census for 1910. So everything on the left column is coming right out of the record that I've chosen to look at. And what's on the right side of the same page is the family from my personal tree in FamilySearch. And what it's showing me is that there is a Laura Bigler on this record. I have a Laura Arzina Mitchell, who I know married Mr. Bigler, so that's probably her. I'm looking at this list of the census records that I've already obtained for her, and I don't see a 1910 census, so yes, I want to add that information. All I'm doing is adding the information by doing this. I'm going to click the Add button. I have an opportunity to type something in here if I want to. What I usually put in there is, in this marriage, the mother's name is spelled such and such. Or in this census, the daughter I thought was named such and such is actually written as such and such. It's a way to note to me what's odd about the record that I didn't expect to find, so that I have a way of capturing that information for later reference. If I just want to attach the 1910 census to Laura's person page, I simply click the Attach button. And notice that this line has all turned green now. That tells me that it has successfully attached to her person page. Now I have a chance. Remember, this is the side that's got the records. This is the side that's from the person page. Now I have a chance to attach that very same record to other people who are closely related, actually in her nuclear family. This is her husband and her 4 daughters. I'll follow the same process one at a time. And literally I am attaching this same record to all 5 of their person pages as quickly as this. Here's Blanche. Add the same words. Attach the record. Here's Lola Albertus. Compare. Add the words. Add the record. Sometimes you won't have words to add. Don't let that concern you. If they're there and you want them, take them. But sometimes the words have to do with a marriage that you already had in the person page, and you may not want to add it again. So do pay attention a little bit. It's not an automatic process. Add, attach. Last child, Gertrude. Add, attach. All of the lines have successfully turned green. To go back to the person page I started with, I simply come right up here to the blue words. That means they're hypertext and will take me somewhere. Click on that. Now let's look at another record, just to reiterate that we found, despite the fact that he was using a nickname in that record. I first searched for him, trying to find this record. Find. We're not going to get this one from hints. We're actually, notice I went to find, it starts me out in find by name, but I'm too lazy to do that. I know his ID number, I want to use it. I come over here and click on find by ID. I put in the ID number, which I know from having written it down. And I should not have to capitalize it or put the dash in. Let's see if that's true in this find box. Yep, there's our man. Okay, believe it or not, this guy went by a nickname of Johnny, J-H-O-N-I-E. So I'll close that again. I just wanted to show it to you because I'm looking right now for the 1880 census. That's the one that I want at this moment. He would have been 6 years old then. I want that one. I'm going to search records in FamilySearch. So now instead of hints, we're seeing, under records, we're seeing a long list of records that could possibly be him. It goes a long, long ways down here, and that's only one of more than 10 pages. Well, not going to sit here for the rest of the night doing this. I want to go to collections because I actually am looking for the 1880 U.S. Census. So I come to Censuses and Lists, and I click on the 1880 Census. Now all I'm seeing on my list is the 1880 Census. And there is Johnny with his parents. See how I can compare up here? His parents are William Faust and Nancy Benjamin. Here's his dad, William Faust, and his mother, Nancy Faust. To see this record, I click on the blue name. And it gives me a new drop-down menu, or not a drop-down, but it's actually giving me the preview right here on this list, which is kind of unusual. I thought that was an interesting innovation that they made. If they don't give you this attached to family tree box, but instead they give you words to the effect, see attachments, it means that that record has already been attached to his page. Would I like to go and see who it's been attached to? In this case, it's never been attached. It says attached to family tree. I will take that opportunity to review it against my people in my tree. It's loading people. The record includes William and Nancy and Johnny, the little boy, his sister W.A., we don't know what her name is, and that's all that are on this list, and that's because this is the 1880 census, and the kids who were born in 1882, 1884, and 1891 were still just a twinkle in their daddy's eye. They hadn't been born yet. So let's start. We'll start. How come they made this box bigger? Can you see how it sticks out on each side? That's because that's the person whose page I started with. So it assumes that that's the one I'm especially interested in. I'll go ahead and attach this record to him first. This is the 1880 census. I want those words on his person page, and I want to attach the record to him. This line has turned green, which indicates that it's through with that. It's completed what I asked it to do. Now let's attach the very same 1880 census to his father, William. Same process. To his mother, Nancy. And to his sister, it says daughter because these references to how that person is related refer to the father in the family. He's the head of the household. So here she's a sister, here she's a daughter. I'd like to point out to you, though, that this is a girl, because in this particular page, in this particular person page, we have two children. Somebody has put this person in as a William A. Faust, who was a male, and she had been put in as W.A. Faust, who was a female. This 1880 census is probably the one that gave somebody the idea that she was a female. Until we know for sure that she was a girl, that is, until we know that she married a man, we probably cannot reconcile whether she was a little girl or a little boy until we have more evidence. So I'm just leaving them both in the family, but this is the reference we have to believing that she's a female, 1880. And so I'm going to put a reason in here. I'm going to say this 1880 U.S. Census states that W.A. Faust was a daughter in this family, not a son, period. And that little piece of information will be listed with the census record on the bottom of each of the person pages of the people to whom the record has been attached. This record does not get attached to Johnny Faust's wife because obviously he was a little boy, he hadn't married her yet, and the other children in the family, as I previously mentioned, are not attached because they didn't exist yet or had passed away. Okay. So that was easy. I mentioned that there are some challenges that can arise when you're attaching records. And I thought hard in preparing for this class about how I could share with you that information most easily and most understandably. And what I thought might be most useful is if I actually went through the solutions for the 6 challenges very briefly, just to show you that you've got the information on your handouts, and then take some real-life examples and show you what I'm talking about and how you deal with them. And so in the coming section, we're going to talk about how we interact with the record, solutions for 6 challenges, 6 major challenges that arise in attaching a scanned record to person pages. And we're going to talk about a fun new resource, which is www.findarecord.com, which I love. How we interact with the record. As we've just described and shown you step by step, we actually match each person in the record to someone in your family. So we start with the record itself and match the record to each person in your family. That doesn't, of course, mean that that record is going to have a reference to each person in your family. Some of them may have died as children. Some of them may be already married and gone by the time that census came around. Some of them might not have been born at all yet. And for the first identified person, we add the offered information to their person page and then attach the record to their person page simply by clicking buttons. We repeat step 2 for each additional identified person, and then we return to the original person page. To do that, we simply click on the name of the person at the upper left corner of the record. Okay, that's just a review of what we've done. Now we get into the challenges and the skills that you're going to acquire in learning how to deal with those challenges. The first challenge is that matching people in the database are not displayed in the right-hand column. So in other words, you've got a record that lists some people that don't have a matching person in the right-hand column. For example, it might list the child, Ruth, and her parents, and you don't see her parents over on the right-hand side of the record, on the right-hand side of the list. That's because you haven't clicked the little open button right here that says show me the parents from the tree for this person. Originally we didn't have to do that, and when they started doing this, all of us were totally lost. We said, what in the heck happened here? All of a sudden we can't attach our records to the people in our tree. I think somebody decided that they needed to make us work just about as hard as they were working. So they made it so we have to actually push a button that says open to show the parents. We can also push a button that says open to show the children and to load the siblings of this person. We also click an open button. Not very hard to solve, is it? We simply need to display family members by clicking an open button. Occasionally, a record includes a person that you didn't know was in your family. Sometimes it might be a child you haven't yet discovered. And this new skill is to actually add a person from the record. Family members in the record are not yet listed in your family group. And the solution is to add the new person to FamilySearch, standardizing birth dates and locations, attach the record to the new person through the record itself, and then go to the new person page and search for possibly duplicate people. When you add this person, FamilySearch is going to do a cursory search for duplicate people before it allows you to add them. Sometimes it will even offer you possibly duplicate people and say, hey, by any chance, could these be the person you're looking for? It's still a good idea to go back to the person page when you're done and search again, because in that second search, FamilySearch will be looking for more than just that individual. It will be looking for that individual in that family, and sometimes it will find them. And then here in this little brief section, if I can make my cursor find it, in this little brief section here, I'm telling you about changing the focus person in your record. But we're going to talk about that a little bit more, and I'm going to show you an example. In fact, that's one of the most important skills that we have now. It's something fairly new in FamilySearch, and it's extremely useful. Sometimes the person in the record doesn't line up straight across from the person in your person page, and you don't want to add a brand new person named Emma J. Brucher. She's Emily Jane Bracher, but you can't make her add up. And what I'm showing you in this slide is that if you simply if you point right here, it's called hovering, just point in this area with your mouse without clicking, you'll see some black up and down arrows, and if you then click on those arrows and hold your cursor down as you drag, you will be able to drag this lady down here, and then she will line up and this person will turn yellow, which tells you that you succeeded. She is now lined up straight across, and you can simply add her without creating a brand new person in the database. I'm calling this drag and drop, which is not an official title, it's just my personal use. Okay, we will be practicing that. So what happens when the record shows not just the nuclear family, the husband and wife and their 2 kids, but also shows grandma, because she was living with them after her husband passed away? This is what I'm calling displaying extended family members. And this is when you need to be able to change the focus person on the record so that instead of this guy, the head of the household, being the focus person, this woman becomes the focus person, and you can ask it to display her parents. From that, you will be able to drag and drop the reference to grandma up to match her mother, and you will be able to attach the record to her as slick as that. Sounds a little complicated, doesn't it? It's not, and I will show you how it works. Let's see how far I'm supposed to go. Okay. All right. In the previous class, when we were talking about duplicates, we also touched on this, but what I wanted to share with you again is that sometimes when you get to a record, it indicates that it has already attached that record to a person with the same name as the person you're trying to attach it to now. If you see this little triangular warning symbol, you should always hover over it or click it so that it will display the information it brings you, because many times it's a primary way to discover that there are already duplicates in the family tree that you had not previously discovered. And you will obviously want to go back and merge those 2 people. It's actually one of the most successful tools they've come up with to help us identify duplicate people in the database. And they do it from records to say this record has already been attached to another person. Do you want to go see that other person and possibly merge her with the lady you're trying to put the record on now? Often when you do that, you will discover not only that you have a duplicate for that person, but for her husband or her parents or her siblings as well. And so the solution is simply to write down the ID number of each possibly duplicate person. In this case, it's this number right here. Return to your persons page without attaching the record. Review and merge each duplicate person and verify the record is now attached correctly. What about a distant family member? We're not talking about grandma anymore. We're talking about a nephew or the grandchildren who were living with the grandparents now because their parents had passed away or they had divorced or were unable to care for them for some reason. This is a new skill that requires a wonderful tool that FamilySearch has provided to us called Sourcebox that very few people know about and use, but that is actually a marvelous resource. When the record that you're looking at contains a distant family member to whom you cannot connect the record, you simply save that record to your source box, which is like a little shoebox that belongs to you and is attached to your password. It's a place where you can add all the records you want. and then attach them from the person page directly from that source box. In the typed record extraction page, click the name of the parent, nephew, etc. to make them the focus person. Then, in that person's person page, attach from source box. See, here's the sources area at the bottom of the person page. Did you ever notice that it says attach from source box? From the source box, find the record and click the word attach, and bang, it's there. I love this source box concept. I haven't seen anybody else who's got this. All right, let's go look at some real life challenges. One of the things that I'm giving you in these classes is a little homework assignment to help you actually reinforce and make the skills that we're discussing yours. And the homework assignment for this class tonight will be very specific. To find a family that needs records, somebody who was alive in 1850 and will have census records, and then to systematically find the records that belong to that person. So in our example, we're going to do the very same thing. We're going to go to a person page, and I'm going to go to John Fletcher Faust, who's going to be our good buddy by the time this is over with. Fine, here we are, L4WR L71, find. Yes, that's him. We're going to try to find several census records for him. We're going to start with the hints, which is usually a good thing to do. We're going to try this one for the 1900 U.S. Census first. We're going to click on his blue name to take us to the preview page for that census and say, John F. Fouts, born May 1874. Remember, the 1900 census is the only one that includes the month and year of birth of the person. Yes, we want to review that. It might be ours. Now, what's on the left side of this screen? On the left side of the screen is the information that's coming from the record, the 1900 census. And on the right side of the screen is the information that's coming from my family tree. Notice John's parents are not displayed. That's because I have not opened his parents. I can do that if I need them for this record. We've got John, then we've got his wife. We've got two of their kids, Clarence and Ida. What else do we have? Whoa. We have the husband's brother-in-law, Louvilla DeVore. It's an odd name, you're right, Louvilla. When I first saw that, I thought, oh, that must be Lavina. But it's not. It's a male, and it's a brother-in-law, not a daughter. Okay, so let's attach this record to the people that are easy first. Add the 1900 census, attach the record. And I'll keep doing that while I ask you to start thinking about who we need to make the primary person in this screen to be able to see the brother of the wife. Here's Clarence, the brother of the wife. Are we going to see the brother of the wife from the husband's page? No. We're going to see it from the wife's perspective, aren't we? That's her brother. Okay, we got through all the kids and the parents now. All right, let's figure out how we're going to get this kid attached through this record to this family. Because this might be the only chance anybody will ever have to figure out where Louvilla was in the 1900 census. See this blue line right here? You don't see it anywhere else on the records attachment screen. It's above the person who is presently the focus person in this search, in this record. and I can change that to any of the people who are listed with green letters, with a green highlight here. In other words, they're in the record too. So I can say, I want to go to Aretta, the wife, instead of to John. I want to make Aretta the primary person in this record. I'm going to click here, and now watch what happens. See how it switched their two names? So now the blue line is over Aretta. What's that going to do for me, you might ask? Well, we want to see her siblings. Let's see if we can find them. There's her children. Load her siblings. I want her brother, who is a sibling. Load her siblings so I can see them. And sure enough, here's Louvilla Edward DeVore. Remember I talked about drag and drop? This is a good time for us to show how that works, because I need to raise this guy up so he's level with this guy. I'm going to point my mouse over here so I see that black up and down arrow. I'm going to push down my left mouse button with my finger right here, and while it's pushed down, I can move this line. I can create a brand new person simply by going between two lines, or I can line it up directly with one of the kids, which then turns green to tell me I'm ready to drop this now. To drop it, I simply remove my finger from the mouse button. And now we can add him from the record to his person page. In fact, we have done so. So we have found a home for that young man. That's the 1900 census for John Fletcher Faust. Let's go back to his person page rather than his wife's. If I click here, I'm going to go to her page. That's not what I want. I'm looking for censuses systematically for John Fletcher Faust, so I'm going to go to his person page by clicking here. That was the 1900 census. I want the 1910 census next. Oh, it's making me go to the person page that way. Okay. Give it a minute to load. And I'm hoping that it's going to offer me the 1910 census over here. It does not. So I'm going to have to look for it. I'm going to go here. I'm too impatient to look at all the records that might possibly include a 1910 census. I'm going to go to Collections. I'm going to say I only want to see the 1910 census. I'm looking for someone named John Fletcher Faust. I look down this list and I don't see him. I'm now introducing a new skill. I'm going back to his person page. When you don't initially find the census or the record you're looking for under that person's page, under that person's name, and they've got kids, in the 1910 census, which of the kids would have been alive in 1910? Perhaps I can look for that census under the child's name, especially if I can find a child that's got a fairly unusual name. Which of the kids would have been alive in 1910? All but these, huh? Clarence is a possibility. If we can find a Clarence Jesse Faust in the 1910 census, he will be with the family and I will have found the census for the dad I was looking for. So let's start with him instead of with the father. Let's go to his person page. See if it offers it to me as hints. No, it's not offering it as a hint. I go to Search Records, Family Search. Go to Collections, and the 1910 census. Here's a 1910 census for a Clarence J. Faust, born 1897. That's when he was born in Indiana. Here's his mother's name, which is really unusual, so that's a dead giveaway. But instead of listing him as John Fletcher Faust, perhaps in the process of indexing this, they have misread the handwriting, or the original census taker simply wrote it wrong. They have misspelled his name, and they have given him the wrong middle initial, which is why I couldn't find the record under his name. But because I took the time to look by an unusual child's name, I found the record I was looking for. Let's go ahead and attach it. First I say attach to family tree. Let's see who's in this thing. Now, because it knows that Clarence J. Faust is the same as Clarence Jesse Faust, it's figured out that John T. Faust is also the same as John Fletcher Faust, spelled differently. But it didn't initially get that. I had to help. So let's start with the one we began with. We'll add 1910 census to his person page. Scroll down so we can see the blue attach button. Come back up and do his parents. I like to be a little systematic about this. I don't like to miss somebody by accident and then search later for that record and find that it was so easy if I just done it right to begin with. Add, attach, back up. Why isn't his wife on this record in 1910? Because they didn't marry until 5 years later, that's why. Okay. Add, attach. Well, we've got Ida here lined up straight across. Ethel, however, is not aligned straight across because they've given her the wrong initial, the wrong middle initial. So once again, we're going to drag and drop her. We're going to hover there to see the up and down black arrows. I'm going to click and hold. Drag her until it aligns where I want it to with the right person, and simply drop it. So now she is aligned correctly. What about this Ray guy? 1908. That's probably Roy. Remember, the date that it gives you here is not for real because they simply asked in the census, except the 1900 census, they simply asked how old is this child? And depending on the date when that census was what they call enumerated, that is to say when the interview took place, that child could have been born a year younger or a year after, that is to say a year before or a year after 1908. All right, so let's drag this one down to Roy. Pop. Those are the kids that are in this census. How come Mark isn't there? This is the 1910 census. Mark passed away in 1895, and so did Carl. In fact, he was born and died in 1895. So this makes sense. Let's go ahead and attach these real quickly. We're going to add the words. We're going to add the record. Whoever took this census, I bet the handwriting was difficult in that census because they've had some trouble with these initials. It could also have been really faint. I looked at some of these and wow, I don't know how they came out with anything on them. And also look at this, William N. Faust. His name was really Norman William Faust. But if he preferred William, they may very well have said, what's his name? Oh, William, because that's what he always went by. And his name was actually Norman William, as far as we know. But he didn't like Norman, he liked William. Ethel. Add the words, add the record. Roy, add the words, add the record. So good, we've got the 1910 census now for this family. Let's go back to, we don't want to go to Clarence, we want to go to his dad because that's who we're trying to get the census records for. And let's look at one of these records. Oh, I keep forgetting it, it's making me go through that summary card. See all of these tabs that it's creating for me up here? It's literally giving me a new tab for every source record that I stop at because I might want to go back to it. And pretty soon you'll have so many of those that you can't even hardly tell where you are. It's a good idea to cancel those, to just drop them. Just remember, you don't want to get rid of the one whose page you want to go back to, or you'll find yourself having to sign back into FamilySearch again. Okay, so here we are on Clarence. Let's just go to John and get this done. I would like to look at this record because marriages are always intriguing. Let's see what we've got on this one. Well, this is a little bit tricky to look at. I want you to have a chance to see this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show it the way they've done it. They're actually saying this is the marriage record for Clarence Faust, who is the wife? No. John Faust is the father. His wife is Heredia DeVore, and their son is the one who's getting married. So if you can make sense out of that, you've done very well. He's marrying a spouse named Clara Geiger, whose parents are listed. We didn't know about Clara Geiger, and we certainly didn't know about her parents. Let's add them to our family tree through this record. Review and attach. Here's Dad. Attach the record. And Mom, attach the record. But when we looked at that preview, we also saw Clara and her father Emmanuel and mother Jenny Berger. And I want to be able to attach the record to them, but they're not listed over here yet. In order to see the bride's family, whose page do I actually need to be showing as my primary person? Let's think about that for a minute while I attach this to the mother. Right now, the primary person in this record is the one with the blue line right above him. That's John Fletcher Faust. I want to make Clarence the primary person so I can add his wife. And then I'm going to make his wife the primary person so I can add her parents. It's not going to be as hard as it sounds. Let's first add the record to the groom. I don't care about where he was living then. All I care about is where the marriage occurred. Now I need to come back up here and make Clarence, the bridegroom, the primary person on the page. Come down here, click here. Notice the blue line is above Clarence now, which gives me an opportunity to add the record for his wife, Clara Geiger. I did know that he had a wife named Clara Barbara Geiger. Now I've got a marriage record to back this up. Do I want to add these words? No, I already had the words, I just didn't have the record. So I'm not going to add these words. I'm not going to add these words or these words. I'm simply going to attach the record. Now, how do I make it so I can display her parents? I have to make her the primary person. Change, go to Clara. It has switched Clara and Clarence so that Clara's parents are available above her. And it's giving me an opportunity to add them as new people to my tree because of this marriage record. If she was born in 1895, I think I will estimate that her father was born in 1870. I don't know where. I don't even know if it was United States, but I do know that he's deceased. So I will say that, and I will create a new person. Now the new person has been created, and I can attach the record to the new person to show where I got that idea that her father's name was Emanuel Geiger. I have an opportunity to add the same thing for her mother, and in this case they were kind enough to give me her maiden name, which is a real blessing. So I will say that she was born about 2 years after her husband was born, so let's say 1877 perhaps. Don't know where, but I know that she is deceased. Creator. Remember we said at the beginning of this presentation that one of the advantages of finding source records is that it helps you find people you didn't have otherwise. This is a perfect example of that. We just found the parents of the bride of Clarence Jesse Faust from this marriage record. Our time is growing a little short. I would like to just show you one more example. I thought it might be useful to you, and then I think we will take a break and come back for a second part B of this series, which is not breaking at the time I hoped it would, incidentally, but it will suffice. So let's go to Clarence, since his dad is no longer listed on this page, and we'll return to his father. We now have 3 records attached to this man, and I would like to find the 1930 U.S. Census, which is not listed here, but it is starting to find more records. I don't know if you happen to notice that. Oh, that's because I was on the wrong person page. Clarence, let's go back. My fault. I guess what I really wanted to show you is probably going to take a little more time than I can spare right now, but I found that in the 1930 census, it indicates that they had a son, John, which I didn't know about before. And I found out that Lawrence had a wife named Golden and a son named Harry who was living with the family, and I hadn't known about them before either. And when I found this same man in the 1940 census, I found that he was living with 3 grandkids who I'd never heard of before. And I found out that they were Lawrence's kids. He apparently died really young. And from that record, I found that he had 3 grandkids we hadn't previously known about. So I will not take longer on this. Instead, we will go back to our PowerPoint presentation. Remember we talked about SourceBox and how helpful it is. I just wanted you to see that in your handouts you have more information about how to manage your SourceBox. Once you start acquiring a lot of records in there, it becomes very cumbersome. They have made a provision so that you can create file folders in your SourceBox and organize your records, which makes it much more easy for you to access them when you're ready. Now I wanted to share with you, I think as our last piece of this Part A, something interesting that I've I just learned about recently, and that is findarecord.com. This is findarecord.com. I simply went to www.findarecord.com, which actually has more things than just records on it, but it's an app that works so closely with FamilySearch, it's just seamless, and actually permits us to find challenges in our family tree in FamilySearch and address them one by one. The first thing you do is sign in with FamilySearch so that, of course, you can pull names from your FamilySearch tree. Otherwise, it might give you names that you're not the least bit interested in. Have to sign in. And I simply want to share with you that when you first start out, who knows which of these are going to be clicked. I'm going to unclick this one about problems and instead click the one on sources, which then I want to come, it's going to give me all kinds of things here. That's not what I want. I want to click on this right arrow, which gives me a chance to specialize the kind of source problems that I want to focus on tonight, one of which is record hints. So when you're watching a baseball game or something on TV and you've got a little time on your hands, you might consider using Find a Record to find people in your family tree that have record hints. So you don't have to go to a great deal of difficulty to locate those records. You simply attach them to the people that they include. And it may take a little while. It does actually go through my entire tree for 4 generations in this case, which is what I've specified. Give me a list one by one of people, and then give me the opportunity to go directly to that person page, add the record hints, and come directly back to find a record and say, I've fixed that one. Give me another one. Here's one right here, for example. And when I want to go to her page, I click on her ID number, which takes me back to FamilySearch. I work on her page. I come back to Find a Record using the icon that looks like this on the top file folder label. That's what I'm showing you on this slide. And I indicate that that one's fixed and it comes off the list. It's as simple as that. It's the slickest little program you ever tried. All right. We will now take a break and come back in just a few minutes to tape part B of this series. Thank you for being with us tonight. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Taming the FamilySearch Goliath class series. This is part B of Class 6. In Class 6, Part A, we introduce 2 family relationships that we need to prove. Can you remember what they are? The first is these 2 people were a couple, and the second is this was a child of that couple. We also talked about finding and attaching scanned records from Family Tree and overcoming 6 challenges in attaching scanned records. And we talked briefly about a new tool called findarecord.com that's fun to use. In the second half of this class, Part B, we now introduce why and how we extract details of a record. We're going to talk about adding and citing a source without attaching it, because many of you will possess printed sources that you will want to attach to person pages, and you may be wondering if there are good ways to do that we can share. We're also going to talk about how you make the sources listed on the bottom of a person page a little more easy to understand and review by renaming and sorting the records. And then we're going to actually introduce some resources that are in the larger FamilySearch website that also permit us to find records that may not be accessible through Family Tree. Okay, here we go. In this section, we're actually working with records we've already found and that are on the person page. We're going to show extracting each record, adding a source without attaching it, how do I cite that, and improving how the list of sources is displayed. Okay, to extract a record. What do I mean by extract a record? See this section right here? This is actually an extraction that I typed of a 1900 census for one of my ancestors. It starts out with the day that the census taker interviewed the family and always begins with the dwelling number and the family number, because that's how somebody who is going to that census to find this record would need to locate it. It's going to be a long list of families. They're going to want to go right to dwelling number 54, family number 54. Then you say, one by one, the information for each individual, starting with the head of the family. And here you might notice, I don't know what's happened to my cursor, there we are. Here you might notice Thomas Speaks, born November 1852, in comma, in comma, in comma. What does that mean? It means he was born in Indiana, his father was born in Indiana, and his mother was born in Indiana. It always goes in that sequence. So it's the individual, their father, and their mother. They were married in 1871. His wife she was born in Illinois, her father was born in Pennsylvania, and her mother was born in Ohio. They have 8 kids, 6 of whom are living. Remember, this is the 1900 census that includes that valuable information. 2 of the kids have already passed away by 1900, so you could look at your list of children for this family and verify that, yep, you knew about those and you got them listed and are doing the family ordinances for them. When I can't easily tell from the name if it's a male or a female, I make sure to put in parentheses that it is a male or a female. So Disa, we would know if Disa was a male or a female unless you indicated that in your extraction. That's what an extraction is. Your purpose in doing an extraction is to learn as much as possible from that record you found. You study families listed nearby in the record itself. It's important to go look at the actual record, not to extract from the indexer's information, because in the indexer's information, they're missing all of the relatives who might be listed nearby on that page. In fact, my mother taught me to always go to the previous page in the record and to the next page in the record to make sure that I'm not missing families who are living nearby. And you simply type the extraction as part of the source at the bottom of the page. So for example, if this was my source on the bottom of the page and I was getting ready to add this extraction, I would merely click the edit button, which gives me a place called notes, which is a blank space and gives me a chance to type in whatever I want. And when I'm finished, I save that and it becomes part of the record on my person page. You can copy and paste that, incidentally, to the same record in the person pages for each of the people who are in the record and save yourself the trouble of retyping it. What about adding a source without attaching it? When would you want to do that? You might simply want to type the information for your source directly as a brand new source. Did you know that at the bottom of the page you can actually create a new source yourself without attaching anything, even from the source box? So you can title it whatever you want. You can tell where the event occurred or where the record was found, and then you go right ahead and provide the details. I used this a lot when I was doing my research in Ancestry and then bringing everything over to FamilySearch after I had it as good as I could get it. At that time, it wasn't yet possible for us to slide a link from Ancestry into FamilySearch so that people could go to the actual record, which is possible now and has been for about a year. And if you care to join us for class number 9, we'll go into that. Be sure that whatever you do, when you finish typing all of this valuable information, you save. And don't know why I said attach. That's interesting. I can't remember why I would need to do that. But if you see an attach button, you be sure and click it. Now there are a couple of other alternatives to doing it that way. You can also add your source in the live sketch section. You can, for example, you might have a personal letter that you've received in your family from another researcher that indicates some information that you wouldn't necessarily want to scan and share with the world, but then it does have some genealogy information that is very helpful. And in the live sketch person, at the top of a person page, you can simply type that information in verbatim as a quote, citing your source. You can also, if you wish, add a source as a photograph or as, I want to say publication, I'm not sure if that's correct, a document, I think, from the person page, and then extract it in the description box for that record. I'll show you that, I think. I'd like you to see that. Give me a sec here. I actually have one to show you, and it might be useful to you to see that. Let's see, let's go to, my parents were avid genealogists for 60 years before I ever got started in this, and those were the days when you couldn't find your records online. You actually had to send to courthouses and stuff to get them. They got a lot of nice records, and I, of course, have received copies of them, and together we have now added those to person pages when many of those records are no longer available to people online. Why am I not quickly getting to him? Because I have to go to the person page. Okay. So I wanted to show you, if we come up here to memories, when we did our class on adding photographs, you will undoubtedly become familiar with the fact that you can add photographs. And this is where I was talking about uploading a document if you choose to add your documents that way. In this case, we have actually added a marriage record to the photo page of this man and attached it also to the bride in this case. Let me show you on the photo identification screen how we did that. Pardon me. Here's an actual photograph of the picture. It was simply scanned on my home computer. And then I literally extracted this line for line in the description box because this is rather a small image and someone might not be able to read it very successfully. So that's one way that you can add a record. Okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint now. I wanted to share with you that when you manually enter sources, you need to be a little bit careful about citing where you got that information. And obviously with the plethora of different ways that you can get information, you may be a little confused about what you need to say in that citation. I personally like this little book, which is becoming rather outdated now, but is so small, only 94 pages, that it's easy for me to use and doesn't take up very much space on my cramped little bookcases. It's available for about $4 on Amazon. The book that looked the best in terms of if I was buying a new book, which one would I want, is this 885-page tome called Evidence Explained that is supposed to have everything you ever wanted to know and presently sells for about $17. There are a number of other books. You want to be sure and read the reader feedback on the publications, because once people have bought the books, they can write in and say what they think of it. This book sounded really promising. Genealogy standards from the Board for Certification of Genealogists sounds very official. But the people who reviewed that book were not entirely favorable, and so it's worth your time to read those reviews before you choose what to buy. Okay. Oh, this is kind of a fun thing to know. I don't know if you've ever looked back at your list of sources on a person page and wondered what you need to be looking for next. What we're going to be talking about now is how to improve that list of sources so that it's easier to tell what you've got and what you still want to look for. On this slide, we're showing you step by step how you edit each vital record title and how you sort them. But I would like to actually show you that in the real world. So that's where we're going. Let's go look at somebody's records that are a little confusing when you first look at them. Oh, that's interesting. Let's do this differently. Let's go this way. ID number. See if we can go to Arnold from Syria. This is the man we want. For some reason, the find function is having a little challenge right now, and so we simply went to the people I've been looking at most recently, which is another great feature that Family Tree has come up with that is not replicated on the other databases I use. Okay, so here's this person page. Now you look at that list and tell me what I need to find next. Do I have all of his censuses? What are all those references to Iowa births and christenings? Whose records are those anyway? What about those deaths? Are those his deaths or whose deaths? Okay. When we first found out that we could do this, we came up with a little standard in my family, and I'm going to share that standard with you. You can use it or you can improve it and make it your own of your own design. But here's what we wanted. First of all, the first thing we wanted on the title of each record was the year it occurred, so that we could ultimately sort them and have them in sequential order. This event actually occurred, see right here, in 1978. 1978, what? This is a death which occurred where? In Illinois. To whom? This is, who's the actual person who died? Nikki Irene Crow. Don't know if it's a wife or a child, actually. I'm going to assume that it's the daughter, well, it probably is the daughter of Arnold D. Hansen. So we'll say daughter of Arnold D. Hansen. And if it turns out that I'm mistaken about that when I go back to the person page, I'll just come back to this and edit it again. Okay, that's how I'd like my title to look. I'm going to save that and close it. This is how it looks now. Do you see how it could be helpful to have more of these with the date first? Then immediately I would know that I've got the 1910 census, and I wouldn't have to sort of skim through all of this stuff to see if I found that one. Let's show you some other ideas. What's this one? That's a death also. This is a birth. Let's show you a birth. Get it? When? When did this occur? 1920. 1920. What is it? It's a birth. Oops. Birth. Which occurred where? In Iowa. To whom? It was Nibby Irene Hansen, daughter of Arnold D. Hansen. And all the rest of that stuff that they automatically gave me, I want to be gone. Save. Let's put a census in here so you see what I do with censuses. It's not any big deal. This is the 1910 U.S. as opposed to Canadian or something census. You could also put state census in there in that case. This is for what state? This was in Shelby, Iowa. So I'll put Iowa dash Arnold Hansen is the head of household. And I'll save that. Now, let's do something else I have to do here. What? Oh, I have to close it. Now we're starting to see some dates along the edge here, and those are the ones that I want to organize chronologically so that I begin to see a pattern of what was going on here. Notice that when I put my cursor on these words, I see black up and down arrows to the right of this line. If I move my cursor away from there, the arrows go away. I have to go straight across, and then I can literally click on the arrows and drag and drop the words. 1920, where's that going to go? It's going to go between 1910 and 1978. For some reason it doesn't. Yeah, that worked fine. If I did that for this whole list, do you see how much easier it would be to look at that and say, oh, I see I'm missing the 1930 census. In this case, of course, I'm not, because there it is. But the point is, I get a more sequential list of the sources that I have found so that I can tell what I'm still looking for. And that's what I wanted to show you. Sorry, my voice is going. Let's come back to our PowerPoint slides. All right. Because this class is primarily intended for those who are relatively new to family history research in general and to family tree in particular, I'm not going to belabor this next information, but what I do want to share with you is that FamilySearch, the larger umbrella website called FamilySearch, offers you an awful lot more than just Family Tree, where we store our family genealogies. It does offer Family Tree with the networking email system, which we haven't talked very much about, but it was actually a very valuable system, and maybe in our next class I'll get to that. It also permits us to find scanned, unindexed source records. The records that we can find through Family Tree are scanned and indexed, but through FamilySearch we can find records that haven't yet been indexed. FamilySearch gives us an opportunity to see what resources are offered through our family history libraries and centers, including Salt Lake City. That, in fact, is how we order microfilms and microfiche from Salt Lake City to come to our regional family history center, like the one we're broadcasting from here in Richland, so that you can look at it and extract the information that's of interest to you for your family. And FamilySearch offers international research aids, 200,000 scanned published books and periodicals, a wiki that's contributed by researchers who have experience in various locations worldwide, and user-contributed genealogies. Did you know about all that? Okay, so let's try to go through a few of those one by one. I'm not going to belabor this. We're not actually going to go do it because that takes some time. I'm simply going to try to show you how you would access information in this way. Method one is to search historical records. You go in FamilySearch at the top of the page where it gives you Family Tree, where you and I have been used to working, and then Memories, where the photographs and stuff are held. It also offers indexing, and that's where our temple reservations lists are found. In the middle of that box is one called Search. You click on Search, and it brings you to a place that says Search Historical Records. You can put in a person's name, you can search by life events, you can search with relationships, you can restrict records based on a certain country, and when you're done you can press the search button and see if you get lucky and find the record you're looking for. 70% of the digitized records offered in FamilySearch haven't yet been indexed for access through Family Tree. That's why we're always eager to learn that people are interested in becoming indexers, because all of us are dependent on that to find the records that are so important to our family history research. Method two is to research by location. So you start again at Search, and instead of clicking, what did we click before? We found Search Historical Records. Instead, we're going to scroll down on that page and see the big map, Research by Location. And we're going to follow these steps step by step. It's going to literally take us by pointing to a location, for example, Canada. It's going to allow us to find records for Nova Scotia by a process of selectively specializing our search until we find all the records that are available for Nova Scotia, and then it gives us a chance to look by database. Or you can browse a specific published collection. For example, once again, you would click Search, then records, and just above the world map you see a section called Find a Collection. Then you follow these steps, and that will permit you to find all kinds of unique and underutilized collections of scanned but not yet indexed records. We can also go to search to find the catalogs of our family history libraries, all the holdings of our family history libraries, including the one in Salt Lake City. This is how we get there. We go to Catalog, FamilySearch Catalog. We tell it which library we want to see. In this case, I want to see any of them. I'm looking for information about a certain place. I'm looking for a surname, a specific surname. I want to know anything you guys have got on that surname. I'm looking for a specific book. I know the title, or I know the author, etc. Okay. Many of us have researched our families in the United States and now need to go into international research. And FamilySearch provides a wealth of resources to do that. Once again, you choose the location on the map, and you selectively narrow that location, starting with the country and then the state and then the province, until you get to the collections that are available for that particular region. One of my friends was interested in research in a tiny little community in Italy. They happened to find out that through this resource that FamilySearch offers a set of about 7 microfilms for that little tiny community and none of its surrounding region. And they've gotten over 7,000 names from those microfilms. Did you know that FamilySearch offers you scanned volumes from all of these major research libraries across the United States? 200,000 scanned printed publications, all offered online through FamilySearch. If you want to, you can selectively say the name of the book you're looking for and it will search for it, or you can go to a specific library and see what holdings they have and see if the book that you want is there. This is a very underutilized resource and I'm excited about it. What's a wiki? Lots of people don't know what a wiki is. I didn't know what a wiki was. Oops, I just want to advance my slide here. A wiki is actually contributed by users. You know, Wikipedia, the encyclopedia that's on the internet that lots of us refer to and school kids can't live without now. It's actually how-to guides and specific and very controlled information about all kinds of topics, anything anybody wants to write about. But they have to show their source. They have to have sources, and they have to show where the information came from so it can be verified. The same thing is true of FamilySearch's wiki, except of course that this wiki is dedicated to family history research. Once again, you start with an area of the world. You start with the broad localities and click through to the smaller ones. And you use keywords, not phrases. For example, Hispanic resources would not be a good idea. But this is a way for you to go to 83,000 articles on unique locations, research locations across the world: Croatia, Czechoslovakia, Poland. If you work in a family history library, you need to know about this, because people will come in and say, I've just learned that I've got relatives in Poland and I have no idea how to find anything on them. You bring them to the wiki and take them to Poland, and it will show you, from the perspective of people who've done a lot of research there, everything they've learned about Polish research. And then many times it will offer you links to databases that include data specific to that location that are not available through FamilySearch directly, but it's simply a link to the country's database that provides the resources you need. What have we covered in Class 6, Parts A and B? Well, once again, 2 essential family relationships to prove. My perspective as an LDS church member is until I have records to prove those two essential family relationships. This is a couple, this is their child, beginning with myself and going back in my ancestry. I have no business doing family ordinances. In this class, we have also talked about how to find and connect records electronically, how to add a source and connect it, how to add a source and cite it without attaching it, the importance of extracting details of a record so that you get every bit of information that record includes, how we can rename and sort the records on a person page, and an introduction to other resources in the larger FamilySearch database that may help us document the facts in our ancestors' lives. Here comes your homework assignment. This is a routine practice in this class series that we give you some hands-on practice. And what we're suggesting is that before beginning class 7, you choose a deceased family in your ancestral line that was born after 1840 for which you possess a printed source record. Add it to the person pages of those it includes. Then find birth, marriage, census, and death records for that family. And finally, attach and extract them. Then rename and sort the records on one person page in that family. So you're actually focusing on one family, and when you get through with it, you will have found every record that you're able to, and will have sorted them and made them look nice on the person page. Coming in our next class, class 7, we are talking about family ordinances, how you find people who are waiting for them, how you reserve those ordinances, and how you print them for temple work. This class is primarily for LDS church members, of course. They have no relevance for non-members especially. It's not a big secret. It's just something that we believe in our church. We want to find ancestors who've not yet been offered family ordinances. And the question is, who can actually reserve those names? How do we print the temple cards? And how can we use the reservations list as a project management tool when we're trying to complete ordinances for, say, 50 or 100 family members? Won't you please join us for that class if it's of interest to you? The Taming the FamilySearch Goliath class series is intended to help you learn to use FamilySearch Family Tree with confidence and skill. You can download the classes and all class handouts from this website. The classes have recently become available on YouTube as well, and those links will be on that same website. The series of 9 classes was presented before a live audience and recorded between November 3, 2016 and January 26, 2017 by West Richland Stake, Washington, of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Mike Goodmanson is our event coordinator, and here is his telephone number. We would like to offer special thanks to the Richland Family History Center in Washington for their generous support and use of classroom facilities and equipment. Thank you very much for joining us. Hope to see you in our next class.